Today's story centers on the papal conclave starting May 7th, which will elect Pope Francis' successor. The process follows rules set by Pope Gregory X in the 13th century, after a 3-year conclave that became the longest in history.
Gregory X, who reigned from 1271 to 1276, established that cardinals would be isolated from the outside world during elections. This isolation aimed to prevent external pressures and ensure a fair, spiritually guided decision.
The conclave's history is tied to the rivalry between the Holy Roman Empire and the papacy. In the 13th century, cardinals split between Guelphs, French-aligned, and Ghibellines supporting the empire, leading to a deadlock that stretched the election for nearly 3 years.
Cardinals were eventually confined to a palace in Viterbo, with food rations enforced to push them toward a decision. Gregory X later formalized these rules, including strict isolation and limited food, to prevent future delays and ensure independence from political influence.
His reforms, like the 1274 Bull Ubi Periculum, aimed to shield cardinals from external pressures. Though some rules softened over time, the core principle of isolation remains, set to guide today's conclave.
Today's conclave will follow this tradition, balancing historical precedent with modern practices. The outcome will shape the next leader of the Catholic Church, echoing the legacy of Gregory X's reforms.
Today's story takes us to a remote island in the Southern Ocean where a population of feral cattle has become a scientific marvel. These animals, found on Amsterdam Island, have thrived in an environment that seems inhospitable.
The key here is understanding how they arrived there. Historical records suggest they were abandoned in the 19th century by a French farmer named Herden, who briefly settled on the island but had to leave due to harsh conditions.
The study of their genetics reveals their mix of European dairy cattle and Indian zebus. This genetic diversity likely helped them adapt to the island's climate, which is similar to the Jersey Islands where their ancestors originated.
The animals didn't shrink to survive, as some theories suggested. Instead, their survival relied on traits like a complex social structure and genes linked to nervous system function, which helped them thrive despite the isolation.
Despite their success, the population was culled in 2010, raising ethical questions. Scientists argued for preserving their genetic legacy, but conservationists prioritized protecting native species like the Amsterdam albatross.
This case highlights the tension between preserving unique ecosystems and the value of wild populations. It also underscores the need for scientific input in conservation decisions, as the culling happened without prior genetic analysis.
Today's story is about Friedrich Merz's failed bid to become Germany's chancellor. He secured 310 out of 316 required votes in the first round, but it's the first time since World War II a candidate hasn't won outright.
That's a historic moment. The CDU, which won the February elections with 28.5% of the vote, formed a coalition with the SPD, who got 16.4%, their worst result ever. But 18 SPD deputies defied their party and voted against Merz.
Exactly. The coalition was supposed to give Merz the majority, but the rebellion threw things into chaos. A second vote is happening today, and if that fails, the Bundestag has 14 days to elect a chancellor with a clear majority.
The far right is excluded from this coalition, which is significant. Merz's party needs a partner to govern, and the SPD's internal conflict highlights the fragility of the alliance.
The stakes are huge. A failed second vote could lead to a snap election or a new coalition. Europe is watching closely. As Spawn mentioned, this isn't just about Germany. It's a test for the continent's political stability.
And the public is waiting for clarity. The outcome will shape Germany's policies for years. We'll keep you updated as developments unfold.
Today's story is about the German political landscape taking an unexpected turn. Friedrich Merz, the leader of the CDU, CSU, failed to secure the majority needed to become chancellor after the first vote in the Bundestag. He got 310 out of 316 required votes, missing the absolute majority by just 6 votes.
That's a historic moment. This is the first time since post-World War II that a candidate for chancellor didn't win outright. The CDU/CSU, who won the February elections, now face a coalition with the SPD, their traditional rivals. But the SPD's results were their worst ever, with just 16.4% of the vote.
Right, and the constitutional rule is clear. A candidate needs an absolute majority in the first round. Merz's coalition, including SPD, should have had 328 votes, but 18 members defied their party stance. This rebellion highlights deep fractures within the CDU/CSU.
The implications are massive. The Bundestag has 14 days to elect a chancellor, either Merz or another candidate. But forming a new coalition would be tricky. The AfD, an extreme right party, is excluded, and partnering with the Greens or other parties would require complex negotiations.
Meanwhile, Scholz, the current interim chancellor, remains in charge until a resolution. Merz's anti-immigration stance and his past alignment with the AfD could complicate things if he tries to rebuild support. This could delay Germany's governance for weeks.
And the political stakes? A stalemate could destabilize Europe's largest economy. The German public is watching closely, and this could reshape the country's political alliances for years. The next few days will be critical.
Today's story centers on the Vatican's conclave, where 7 Brazilian cardinals, including Leonardo Steiner, will participate. Steiner, the Amazon's first cardinal, is seen as a key figure due to his ties to the region's pastoral challenges.
The conclave's list includes other notable names like Sergio de Rocha, the Primas do Brasil, and Jaime Spengler, the CNBV president. However, experts note the odds of a Brazilian pope are low, with the current favorites leaning toward European and Asian candidates.
The Vatican highlights Brazil's status as the country with the most Catholics globally, yet the conclave will see the largest number of Brazilian cardinals in history. Voting rights are limited to cardinals under 80, a rule that influences the selection.
Steiner's background as a Franciscan friar and his focus on the Amazon's ecological and social issues make him a unique candidate. His role as a consultant to Pope Francis underscores his importance in shaping the Church's priorities.
Other cardinals, like Orani Tempesta, played pivotal roles in events like the 2013 World Youth Day. Yet, the conclave's outcome remains uncertain, with geopolitical and theological factors shaping the final decision.
The absence of a clear favorite reflects the complexity of the process. While Brazil's cardinals bring regional expertise, the final choice will hinge on global dynamics and the candidate's alignment with the Vatican's vision.
Cardinal John Jew, a Kenyan prelate, is not attending the papal conclave per Vatican announcements. The absence was first reported 4 days ago, with no immediate details provided.
Italian media now suggest the reason relates to a controversial past. Official documents reveal he altered his birthdate from 1944 to January 1, 1946, to qualify for voting in the conclave. That would make him under 80, the age limit for participation.
Yet, Nju himself denied rumors of illness, stating he was not invited. In an interview with Kenya's Daily Nation, he called his exclusion unexplained, rejecting claims of health issues.
The Archbishop of Nairobi, Philip Iniolo, later claimed Nju was officially invited but couldn't travel due to health concerns. But Vatican spokesperson Matteo Bruni clarified cardinals don't need invites, and the Decano's verification found no valid reason for his absence.
This raises questions about procedural transparency. If the Vatican's verification process excluded him, does that signal a broader issue with eligibility checks?
Indeed, The controversy underscores tensions between tradition and modernity in the Church. Altering birth dates to secure voting rights is a practice some view as unethical, though others see it as a bureaucratic workaround.
Portugal is set to notify approximately 18,000 undocumented immigrants to leave the country, with 4,574 facing immediate action next week. The government claims these individuals were denied residency permits by the AIMA agency for violating local rules.
The majority of those affected are from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, and Bhutan, though Brazilians are also included. Those notified have 20 days to depart, or risk detention and deportation under Portuguese law.
The Sindicato dos Trabalhadores de AMA noted that recipients can appeal the denials, but the 20-day period continues during legal proceedings. If they fail to leave, they may be detained during traffic checks or other operations.
Unlike the U.S., Portugal's AIMA agency lacks the authority to enforce deportations. Security forces handle detentions, which means the government isn't launching a mass hunt like Trump's policies.
The move comes ahead of Portugal's general elections on May 18th, following the collapse of PM Luís Montenegro's minority government. His interim role persists amid a family consulting firm scandal.
With over 110,000 pending residency applications, officials expect the number of notifications to rise. This policy highlights tensions between immigration enforcement and legal processes in a politically charged climate.
President Putin and Israeli PM Benjamin Netanyahu held a phone call Tuesday to discuss the Middle East situation and bilateral relations, per the Kremlin.
That's unusual given the current tensions. What specific issues did they address?
The Kremlin didn't specify details, but the call likely touched on Gaza, Lebanon, and regional security. Both leaders may have emphasized stability and cooperation.
Israel's focus on security versus Russia's strategic interests in the region. How does this call fit?
It's a diplomatic move to manage tensions. Putin might be seeking to balance relations with Israel while addressing Ukraine and Syria. Netanyahu likely prioritized regional stability.
What's the broader implication for Middle East peace efforts?
Unclear. Such calls often signal cautious diplomacy, but lasting solutions require more than bilateral talks. The situation remains volatile.
Bye-bye.
Today's story centers on the Vatican's symbolic gestures marking the end of Pope Francis's papacy. The annulment of the Ring of the Fisherman and the lead seal occurred during a general congregation of cardinals on May 6, 2025, the day before the conclave to elect a new pope. These acts are traditional in Catholic canon law, signifying the formal transition of power.
The Ring of the Fisherman, a custom-made ring with Pope Francis's name engraved, was destroyed shortly after his death in April. It also served as a seal for official documents. The lead seal, a symbol of papal authority, was similarly annulled during the meeting. This ritual underscores the gravity of the conclave, which begins tomorrow.
The conclave, set to start on May 7th, has historical precedence. The average duration of the last 10 conclaves was 3.2 days, with two notable exceptions: 2005's election of Pope Benedict XVI and 2013's election of Pope Francis, both completed in 2 days. A swift outcome is seen as a sign of unity within the Church.
Cardinal Gregorio Rosa Chavez, a Salvadoran prelate, recently predicted the conclave would last at most 3 days. This aligns with the expectation that a candidate will secure 2/3 majority quickly, triggering the white smoke signal. However, delays could signal division, which the cardinals aim to avoid.
The 133 cardinals expected at the Sistine Chapel include long-standing papables and emerging candidates discussed during the congregations. While Italian Cardinal Pietro Parolin and Filipino Archbishop Luis Antonio Tagle were initially seen as favorites, the process remains fluid.
The annulment of symbols and the conclave's timeline reflect both tradition and the Church's desire to move forward. The focus now shifts to the cardinals' deliberations, with the world watching for the next pope's selection.
The Vatican is set to begin its conclave on April 28, 2025, to elect a new pope. The average duration of the last 10 conclaves was just over 3 days, with none exceeding 5. A prolonged process could signal division within the Church, which the cardinals aim to avoid after Pope Francis' recent passing.
Exactly. The cardinals are under pressure to reach a consensus quickly, as delays might imply internal strife. Cardinal Gregorio Rosa Chavez even predicted the election would conclude in no more than 3 days, echoing the efficiency of past conclaves like 2005 and 2013, which ended in just 2 days.
The voting process involves multiple rounds, with a majority of 2/3 required. If no candidate emerges by the 3rd day, a 1-day prayer break is mandated. This creates a tight timeline, as delays could undermine the Church's image of unity.
The cardinals are divided between potential candidates, including Italian Cardinal Pietro Parolin and Filipino Luis Antonio Tagle. Yet, many are unfamiliar with each other, as Pope Francis appointed over 80% of the electors, many from distant dioceses, creating a new generation of cardinals with limited prior interaction.
This unfamiliarity might open the door for big electors to influence outcomes. Historically, figures like Franz Koenig and John Kroll helped sway votes in 1978, leading to Pope John Paul II. Today, tensions between traditionalists and moderates, like Gerhard Müller and Michael Czerny, could shape the process.
The election's outcome will also reflect the Church's priorities. A quick result might signal stability, while delays could highlight fractures. Yet, cardinals are bound by secrecy, though leaks often surface afterward, as seen in the 2013 election where Jorge Mario Bergoglio rose from obscurity to become Pope Francis.
The conclave's conclusion will hinge on whether a consensus candidate emerges swiftly. If not, the Church may face scrutiny over its ability to unite. As one Vatican analyst noted, a delayed election could signal a lack of momentum among the cardinals.
Indeed, the stakes are high, not just for the Church but for global Catholics. The new pope will shape the Vatican's direction in a rapidly changing world. The coming days will reveal whether the cardinals can balance tradition, reform, and unity in their selection.